listening to the Leland Grit podcast, giving you the latest and greatest in tech, giving you the scoop, insight, and reviews, and all the information that you need to know about technology. Here's your host, Leon LeGray.
All right, there we go. Hello, people. Thanks for listening to the Lean Like Great podcast, all your source of tech, news, and how-tos, and how to get through the world tech, even in a modern COVID-19 era. If you have a chance, a time and place to read this, you should. And if it's something that you're looking to do podcasting, this is really great to start off. In fact, one of the articles I was reading while I was just doing podcast improvements, and this is one thing I was looking in. Oh, and this is real good. I liked what I was reading the other day, and this is quite amazing. And if you are someone that is looking to do podcasting, then good for you. And this is a great article I'm going to go and share on the show notes below. And this article, headlines, which states 3 reasons radio personalities should be podcasting. Now, I know there are radio hosts out there that I know that they are not podcasting themselves. And this is one thing, is that being a radio host it's not as popular what it used to be. I mean, back in Haiti, where you go ahead and make good bucks in being a radio or a DJ, right? A radio DJ on the air. Now, that's not the case anymore. And this is where I find pretty funny that you have to be on radio to go into podcasting. First of all, I don't think that's true, and that's not something that we should go back into all these old traditions on radio to start making audio formats onto podcasting. And it's pretty ridiculous. And that you have the old school DJs still out there doing stuff on the radio, right? But then they don't have a podcast themselves. And this is what the article actually reminded me, ways that I was just like, this is a good reason to have a podcast. Even heck, I didn't start on radio myself, but it was something that I wanted to talk about technology, and I wanted to get on the show to do commentary, because this is something I enjoy talking about, and something I could give my expertise, my how-tos, and some of my opinions what I want to do. And I think there are things that does separate itself between radio and podcasting. Now, where I think it's different is because, for one, if you're going to be on, let's say, FM radio, one thing for sure is that you're to restrict what you say on the radio, what you want to say on the radio, of course. Then, with podcasting, I mean, if you look at it this way, podcasting is such a fresh medium now, that it gives people more opportunity to talk whatever they want to talk, and also podcasters can choose to have their podcast be anything what they want. Like, it could be beauty, it can be fashion, it could be finances, and it can be just talk show, interview 101, right? And this is something you don't ever hear on the radio. Right, and this is one thing. It's a good reason to make make a jump into podcasting because podcasting is very, very fresh on the scenes right now. And I grew up with podcasting when it actually first launched in 2005. Yeah, 2005. But I got in depth, much more in depth with it around 2006 when I was in high school back then. So mind you, this was this was a fresh medium and just a huge jump from what I was listening to in the past, like radio. And from then on, I've been listening to podcasts from 2000. Yeah, actually, I started listening to podcasting in 2005 all the way through 2008 at the time. So it was like a 3-year split. Just listening to podcasting, and one of my favorite podcasting shows, I did listen to both of them via audio and video as well. And that was a podcast I did run for 6 years, I believe. Let's see, 2005 all the way to 2011. Yeah, so that was 6 years. And I enjoyed it a lot too. And they've actually posted, over 1,000 episodes until they stopped. This podcast was called Dig Nation. I enjoyed about podcasting, this podcast right here, because they would talk about so many subjects on not just technology, of course, but you got personalities, the news, things like that would spark anyone's interest. And Dig Nation, they will talk about stories that would come up on the Dig Nation website, which it was a website created by Kevin Rose. He was a TV personality that talked about TED Talk and live television at one point. Now, it was a really good show when he did Tech TV back then, and I've enjoyed it too. And cable TV was something to have back in the day, and just because there was so much to provide on cable back then. But nowadays, you don't really need to have cable anymore. And radios, of course, I mean, radios are free to listen. But however, the problem I find out with radio is that it just throws so many ads on radio. I mean, it's just like television. Television throws a lot of advertisements on TV, which that's actually one of the reasons why so many people are cutting the cord. And that's why I see that this is the good reason why so many people are cutting terrestrial radio just to listen to podcasting, because they offer fewer commercials right there too. And the only commercials you're gonna get is commercials from sponsors commercials, what some podcasters will do, and which is true, because I know that if in order to keep any podcast afloat, you gotta monetize yourself, and you gotta help support yourself just like anyone else, right? And this just came up there because it was something I wanted to talk about too, because in the article it says 3 reasons why radio personalities should be podcasting. And I read the article and it was really good. Coming from, if you're someone that's coming from the radio scene, it's a good time to do podcasting now. Right now, it is 2020, the year 2020. I mean, podcasting has been around for 15 years right now. So there's no reason why no one should really be saying, no, I don't want to do it. You know, this is a good time. And a lot of people will end up discovering you off the air too, as well too. Though I won't say that you don't have to be off the air completely. Now you can just have your radio show pretty much offline, you know, so that way people can go and find you. And this is really, really good. And I like it. And I think there was one quote that Steve Jobs said when he announced podcasting. When he brought podcasting onto iTunes, what he said was, this is like radio meets TiVo. Pretty much. It's like radio meets TiVo. I think if I quoted him right. But anyways, it was a keynote that he said on WWDC in 2005. So don't quote me that correctly on that too. It's like radio on TiVo, which is correct because. And here's one thing I like about the medium, right there. If I could be honest, even as someone that that talks about tech commentary, games, things like that too, is that you're never gonna find that on excuse me, you're never gonna go and find that on, like, for instance, on regular radio channels. You're just never gonna do that on FM or AM radio. Forget that. And that's something. If you're, let's say, if you are able to find tech talk, game talk, animation talk, whatever genre subjects you want to hear, then probably I know that college radio will bring more option to it. But again, who's going to just go over and go and listen to regular radio? I mean, come on, that's a bit out there, personally. But anyways, before I continue, I'm gonna go ahead and take a quick break before I continue on forward. All right, now we are back. All right, so, and since now I really went ahead and gone over and pretty much explained about the article, which I think this article does give out 3 good points on this right here about why personalities should go on, or excuse me, why 3 reasons radio DJs should have their own podcast, which whoever wrote this, let me take a look. I believe it's Dave Jackson that wrote this. Yeah, Dave Jackson, the author behind School of Podcasting. It's a great website. I will definitely recommend this website for anyone starting out to become a podcast or thinking about doing a podcast at some point. Check it out right there. I think it's great. It's a great article from Dave Jackson. I follow his channel, School of Podcasting, up on YouTube. So if you guys like, go ahead and check him out as well. So let me go ahead and talk to you about one thing that came in mind when I was doing podcasting. There was one thing I have to say though. I know that you definitely have people in the radio establishment. They're not embracing the new medium, and for good reason. They're being threatened by new technology like this, and this is one thing it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me because, for one, podcasting does translate really well. It does. For some reason, I don't know why anyone would reject to a medium like podcasting. It does translate well, and also you can get the what you said on your show and have it on MP3. Because for me, it makes a whole lot of sense to have a podcast medium, because for love of God, who's going to have time to sit down and listen to you live on the air? Everybody has busy lives, and not just that, like, just not going to be able to follow up on a show, and that's one thing I don't like, is having to wait for a time schedule when you're going to be live. Though it's fun to be on live, listening to people live on a YouTube stream, or go into an interactive chat, which that's what I do here and there too. I love these things. I think they are great. They're a great medium. One thing for sure, certain too. However, with radio, there's no social aspect to it too. There really isn't. When it comes to it too, like when you have podcasting, you got the social aspect to it. They've already implemented social on podcasting, which I know it took forever to do. Compared to video like YouTube already had the social features, especially you can contact the creator on real time, and especially that you can just do that and not having to go and call on the air, which that's what's the beauty about the internet right there too, because it makes such a huge difference on their on podcasting, which I totally like about it as well. So I mean, of course, you can go ahead and leave not just a comment, or you can leave a voicemail if you'd like, which if only if a podcaster does give the option to do that. And I know that there's plenty of podcasters out there that does give an option to leave voicemails, which is cool. Which is cool. Probably I know someday I will do that on my show someday. And one thing I will put down on, if it has to be any radio establishment on anyone else that's pretty out of touch. I mean, Howard Stern is a prime example when it comes to it too. And he for instance doesn't make a shitload of sense not to have a podcast. And to think that in order to be well known, you have to be on terrestrial radio, which is absurd to say, you know. And here's I will say, one thing I will say good about Howard Stern is that he was part of this change when he was up live on radio, where everybody was doing the same old, you know. And first of all, this is not the 1980s, right? And this is not his time anymore. And the problem is that, sure, we're going to be in threat with new things coming up and about, right? Some sort of new technology taking over podcasting, but I don't think that's ever going to happen, you know? And you have all these other news outlets that have already embraced podcasting already. You mean, and this is all good. And this is a good medium to have a podcast alongside with radio. And this doesn't make a lot of sense too. And for me, it took me time to study and understand that right there too about podcasting. And of course, I was young. I didn't know much about podcasting growing up too. I mean, it takes some learning. You have to know about RSS feeds. You have to learn how to post a MP3 file up on a media host. It doesn't take that long to do. And in fact, if anyone is looking to go ahead and put yourself out there and wanting to talk about something useful for someone to listen or to learn about you, it's definitely a good time to do that too. And in fact, I will put my thoughts about RSS feeds, because I know that not a lot of people talk about RSS feeds anymore, or really simple syndication. And this is a old technology that goes back in the 90s too. And real RSS is it's a good thing to talk about, because I know that it has a lot to do with podcasting. Let's put it this way. Excuse me. So what I will say about the whole thing with radio personalities, I think when it comes to it too, nobody is listening to them live anymore. And I know that nobody miss radio personalities anymore. I just think they're just full-blown talking heads. You just can't listen to everything what they say, you know. And then you've had who's his face, like I just mentioned, Howard Stern. He pretty much he says, there was a clip I actually found out about Howard Stern, which slams on podcasters, right? And I think he's very bizarre. And by the way, I don't like I know there's fans out there, fans of Howard Stern. For me, I've never been a fan of him, never will be. Now, and however, he has a show on Sirius XM, and for the love of God, what I'll put it is that who on earth is listening to Sirius XM right now too? I mean, for me, if I had to go over the choice between Sirius XM over podcasting, if one or the other, I would choose something I could listen for free, no cost required, month to month cost, just like Sirius XM. However, he has a show posted on Sirius XM, and that, see, this is one thing, is that when he was growing up, he was part of the change. He was a shock jock going up over growing up right there too, and a lot of people loved him. Now, guess what? A lot of people hate him, you know, and this is the thing. Like, nobody's listening to the radio anymore, and a lot of people are finding now good and useful things to listen to instead of shock jockeys, which doesn't really impress me anymore. And the fact that is that here you have someone out there so not in the times anymore. They've pretty much lost the touch they have back in when they started back in the heyday. Put it this way too. However, it's just an awful mess, a real awful mess to go through. So that is why they're thinking is, he talks about his buddy Adam Carolla, saying that, well, having to be a paid podcast is a rare exception. Only very few people do. You have to start radio first, just like my buddy Adam Carolla. Which, that sentence does not make tons of sense too. Anyone out there can make money on podcasting and monetize on podcasting. He is right now. I'm sure that his net worth. Sure, he's making millions, but I'm sure he's starting to lose millions because there's not a lot of subscribers on Sirius XM. A lot of people are cutting terrestrial radio over a new medium such as podcasting. You've got good shows on podcasts right now. Good talk shows like Joe Rogan, Tim Ferriss that I listen to every now and then, which I do a lot. Pat Flynn, he has a great show. He has like 5 shows up on the iTunes directory. Great stuff, great useful things instead of just dirty talk radio. And this is one thing I despise on the media establishment for. It's something I despise. And plus, the internet does give you a lot of freedom nowadays to talk whatever subject that you want. It's great. The change is great, which I love about it too. And you definitely have to have a disruption in order to fight a huge media establishment like radio or television, right? And for the love of God, I haven't even sit around more than an hour watching television, except if I'm with my family. That's fine. That's just part of the exception. But I don't sit down and listen or watch on TV anymore. I just don't. To me, it's something I don't like listening to watch TV. I'm sure like I will go back to TV and watch probably a classic movie and things like that too. Now there's been only very few good movies out there right now. I'm going to be honest. Very few good movies, and the last movie, and I would take that back, that the last movie I did watch in theaters before this pandemic issue started was and I oh gosh, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I watched the Rise of Skywalker. Gosh, only because a friend invited me. And one thing I will say for certain is that, for the love of God, people, do not waste your money on Rise of Skywalker. Piece of crap, my personal opinion on it too, just because, but I will not go over ranting over the Rise of Skywalker. But besides the point, nobody, you got so many, sure, there's many good movies out there that are doing well. Like, for instance, I haven't seen The Lighthouse with Pat Robinson. Great movie, I've heard. Not watched it. Right. I wanted to watch it and see how that is. How it is. I heard from a brother of mine. He said he liked that movie with Pat Robinson and Willem Dafoe, which is great. The Lighthouse. And I heard that Pat Robinson is going to be in the next installment of the Batman movie, which I'm like, hey, very good. That's what I love to do, is go in, check that out too. And I think he's a great actor. I would watch him. But anyways, moving on right there too, because that's why this is what I'm talking about. You definitely have media establishments that are not picking up things as you go, and they're just not going forward in going embracing new mediums such as podcasting. It's a great medium to go on to as well, and especially as I myself, more, and this is why I love doing podcasting, because it does definitely gives you tons of freedom to talk whatever subject you want without any restrictions. And I think one thing to add right there is you can pretty much say what you want to say. Basically, you can pretty much throw down a swear word if you want to, right there too. I mean, because on radio you can't really put down put anything dirty, of course, because there's tons of limitations what you could say on radio. So pretty much that pretty much cuts you out of the loop. You can't really do that. But either way, that's tons of things that anyone can do. In fact, for anyone that is looking to do podcasting as the start of 2020, I think it is a great time to start doing it while you're confined in your own homes, stuck on lockdown. And in fact, I know that the Apple podcast support is going to be very, very busy with everything going on, since people are now stuck at homes doing nothing right now. And now I'm sure many of you are kind of thinking, well, I don't know how to use podcasting. I don't know how podcasting works. I need to know what can I do to start. And I know it's very simple. YouTube is your friend. Check out the videos. They'll help you how to start a podcast. And if I have to recommend any podcast podcast show or any personal structure that to do it, I would say check out Pat Flynn. Pat Flynn is one of the biggest podcasters out there too. He's a big following up with Tim Ferriss, Adam Carolla, Joe Rogan, alongside right there too. As far as the listenership goes, Pat Flynn brings tons of listeners, and that's why I'd say go and check out Pat Flynn. And he does step-by-step tutorials up on YouTube. He does a great job either way. So what I would say is go ahead, check out Pat Flynn to start podcasting. Tons of good instructions as well. I know that Tim Ferriss doesn't really do much of tutorials on it too, but he does explain bits and pieces right there too. But I know that Tim Ferriss's main point is pretty much does a lot of talk interviews, what I noticed on his show. But either way, he does some step-by-steps how to go through things at a very easy pace, which I liked about Tim Ferriss. And it's something that I enjoy. His talk. His talk is great. He brings in a lot of interesting people in his show, which gives you something to learn, pretty much. But yeah, anyways, Pat Flynn or Tim Ferriss's channel, and I forgot to mention Shan Hernandez. Great stuff coming from him. In fact, I'll actually put the link down below on his website for you to visit. He always brings brand new tutorials and how-tos and commentaries every week, all about podcasting and radio. He does radio, but he also brings his voice on podcasting as well. He does a great job too. So don't miss out on Pat Flynn and Shannon Hernandez. Great, both great guys too, to add on. But yeah, so bottom line, people. So if you're gonna get into podcasting, that's a great medium to start out. Now, audio podcasting is very, very easy to work with. Now with video, it isn't terrible to get on podcasting via video. I mean, it translates the same if you think about via audio and video. So if you want to watch someone or interview, then you guys can do that as well. So I know that there's tons of tutorials on how to go through video editing, and that does translate really, really well. So there are tons of tutorials. I will definitely recommend going through a YouTube search and go from there too. Also, I do recommend to any of my listeners is make sure to pick up books on podcasting and tutorials how to set up one up right there too, which I know there's going to be, like I've said, tons of things I'm going to be talking about really simple syndication or XML later on my later talk about on the how-tos on XML and .rss on that too. Now I know that the third edition of Podcasting for Dummies does explain pretty well, so you guys can check it out too. And as far as equipment is concerned, I won't get into depth about equipment, which there's tons of equipment out there too as well. There's tons of things to do too, and to get yourself going. If you decide to start becoming a serious podcaster, best thing to do is do a bit of research on equipment. For example, if you're going to be doing serious podcasting, finding a good mic. It doesn't have to be an over $100 mic. You can find a good Samson brand mic for less than $100 too, and then adding with the mixer, a mixer interface. If you're looking for a mixer interface, then good. If you're looking for audio interface to make things much simpler, then great. I mean, those are wonderful choices, both of them too. Now I am looking to upgrade to a Breinheimer mixer, which that's something I'm looking for in the future, making a purchase at some point. But that's something we'll have to see and see how that's gonna work. But hey, that's whatever. So I know at the end of the day, you definitely have to put in the expense into putting on the podcast right there too. And also, like I've said, is 2020 good time to start, because one thing is for certain, if you're looking to do podcasting later on, my take on that is that it's going to be quite challenging down the road, because this is the thing, is that if you're going to be looking to get an audience to do podcasting long down the road, it's going to be quite of a challenge to get yourself out there if you wait later on. So since I know a lot of people have time, a lot of people can do a recorded show right in the comfort of their own home, basically. I mean, I'm doing it right from the comfort of my own room, actually, doing this podcast. So this is, like I said, great stuff. Not a bad way to learn. Now, however, as far as getting an audience, as far as keeping your audience up to date, like especially like a newsletter, is always going to be very, very important. In a website, I know Pat Flynn does a really good job explaining how to start a podcast. So like I said, go and type into Pat Flynn on YouTube and check his material out. So don't miss it. All right, folks. So that's about it for today's show. I hope you enjoy my talk for today. And if you do enjoy what I have to say and want to continue to listen to more content like this, be sure to subscribe to me everywhere else, especially on iTunes, Google Play, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Radio Public, Spotify, whatever you listen to me on. Be sure to follow me up on those platforms, subscribe to me there, and for more tech commentaries and how-tos like this too, especially for me talking about podcasting, which I know that a lot of people right now, since everybody is home right now, I know that this will definitely give some you listeners out there to think on this and give you something to learn on this talk right there too. Especially now, I know that podcasting can be a lot of work, but at the end of the day, that it can be quite rewarding, because you're going to be reaching up to a lot of people out there. So what are you waiting for? Create something awesome, whatever you're doing. So that being said too, so if you want to go ahead and follow me up and check out my socials, such as Twitter, Minds, Mastodon, or whatever social media account that you have. I'm pretty much almost everywhere except for Facebook. But yeah, so check me out on there if you want to follow me over here. And yeah, and also last and not least, be sure to check out my website, leonlegrayentry.blog. So right from there, I write blogs each and every week. So if you guys want to check me out on the latest posts, what I do and things I do, so by all means follow my blog. I'm always active each and every week, so go ahead and check it out. So I hope you guys enjoyed the show and learned something out of this too. But anyways, folks, you enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, wherever you are listening to me on. You take care. Ciao. Have a great one.